Morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I couldn't be more happy to see the size of the audience we have today to celebrate the launch of the Inter-American Dialogues Brazil program under the leadership of the amazing Bruna Santos. So it couldn't be a more consequential moment to deepen our engagement on Brazil. From tariff policy and democratic governance to global geopolitics, the stakes are high and the direction of policy remains uncertain. As we'll hear shortly, the economic dimension remains a cornerstone in the bilateral relationship, and it also remains one of the most promising areas for collaboration. Trade and investment between our two countries bring tangible benefits, not only driving growth and innovation, but also creating jobs and opportunities in both countries. So we're so proud to be launching this program today under Bruna's leadership. I think everyone here knows that Bruna is one of the most respected voices on Brazil and on US-Brazil relations. She combines deep expertise with vision and with energy, and we are thrilled that she's brought her leadership to the dialogue. I'm totally confident she's going to take the program to new heights and ensure that it's at the forefront of the most important conversations about Brazil's role in the region and in the world. And these are conversations, of course, that require thoughtful, sustained engagement, not just from governments, but from civil society, that include the private sector and that include policy communities like ours. I also want to recognize that we have a very special guest in the audience today, one of our board members who flew in this morning, Priscilla Vancetti. And I want to thank Priscilla, who is a board member of the Dialogue and was really also instrumental in bringing the Brazil program to the Dialogue. So Priscilla, thank you. And with that, I'm really happy to turn it over to, there you are, Ambassador Tony Harrington, former U.S. Ambassador to Brazil and co-chair of the Brazil Programs Advisory Council.
Thank you, Rebecca Bill, for those kind remarks, for your hospitality, and for arranging the microphone. On behalf of the Advisory Council for the Brazil program, previously, as you know, the Brazil Institute at the Wilson Center. Thank so many for joining us today for the launch event of the Brazil program at the Dialogue. As you may have noted in your email, we had to put in a virtual option to accommodate many who were interested. Very encouraging. And thanks especially to Rebecca Bill, Elizabeth Belair somewhere here, and Julia Spies and others who were instrumental in facilitating the move. The challenging times make the presence and the work of the Brazil program even more important. And God knows we have some challenges, but we're here today to focus mostly on opportunities that we in the nonprofit and private sector, opportunities that we can take to move things along and get ready for what surely will be an ultimate recovery. And the name of the organization, Inter-American Dialogue, it couldn't be more important. It's a great name to have as we embark on this important new chapter, which I'm resolved to be even more successful than we were when we were part of the Wilson Center. You've heard a little bit about some tariffs, some Supreme Court decision-making, visa denials, et cetera. Hopefully we will return to bilateral government dialogue. We will sometime, but in the meantime, it's incumbent on each of us and those we know or affiliated with to move things forward. Here we have the two largest democracies in the hemisphere, a large two-way trade, and indeed a rare trade surplus. We had the US and Brazil, a strange environment for the Orange Fellows tariff initiative. And I'm concerned that we not push or allow Brazil to drift away from the hemisphere, figuratively, into the arms of China, maybe pushing India there as well. And obviously we've got Russia. We don't want that to form an alliance that is dismissive of our relationship. I was privileged to serve as U.S. ambassador unexpectedly in better times there and here. We have some other ambassadors on the advisory council, the great Tom Shannon, who's on vacation, I think, a well-deserved vacation. Liliana Ayaldi, and we have the great former Consul General over here, Ricardo Zuniga. When I went, President and Mrs. Clinton and President and Mrs. Cardozo were each other's closest first family friends. And that so enhanced my impact, including developing a prompt relationship with the President Cardozo, who was, as most of you know, an exceptional president in almost in all respects. Indeed, he was sort of the godfather of the creation of the Brazil Institute at the Wilson Center. So today we'll discuss mutual benefits and opportunities and how those of us in the private sector can help and are helping. Brazilian companies are providing needed products to the U.S., some investments and some job creation. U.S. companies are doing likewise, especially including investment. And both have managed to moderate the impact of the tariffs a bit through advocacy for some important exceptions that were created. There other organizations will be instrumental and we'll collaborate. The AmCham in Brazil, the National Confederation of Industry, probably FIESP, Council of the Americas here. Hope to be a little more active with the Brazil Congressional Caucus. But again, thanks for being here and being on the case. And when I was texting with Bruna this morning, she said, yay, et cetera, we're still here. So over to you, star leader.
Yeah, I used many exclamation points in that text. So, bon dia, welcome. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Tony, for your kind words. It's been really, and your restless support, honestly. It's been really humbling to see how our advisory council, our members, our fellows, the companies, everyone has rolled up their sleeves to support this transition and to support the Brazil program in this new phase. I also want to thank you, Rebecca. It's been such a wonderful experience to work under your leadership. You are fantastic. And I want to thank all the team here at the Inter-American Dialogue. Also, I think I speak for Julia, for my colleague Julia here today. Today is a moment of victory for us. It's a celebration for many people. I know it may sound odd given certain circumstances, but as Tony said, we are still here. Washington, D.C. still has a country-focused policy institution focusing on Brazil. And we are here to celebrate that, but also to discuss what's next in moving forward. Obviously, this dialogue unfolds in a context of where the U.S.-Brazil relations face real pressures. But it remains both crucial for both countries. I often think myself that this relationship is too important to fail. And my hope today is that we leave with a conviction that this story here is not only about strength, but it's also about resilience. And it's also about thinking creatively through the way forward. So I want to underscore one word here this morning, which is interdependence. And we thought through a panel today, we framed this discussion today and designed and invited the people who are gonna be here today to bring those dimensions to life. So I'm really happy to invite here to join me on stage today, Fabio Almeida. Please join us, Executive Vice President for Paper and Packaging at Suzano. With more than 25 years of international business leadership, Fabio now oversees Suzano Global Packaging Operations. Suzano, for those who don't know, is the largest pulp manufacturer in the world. And before that, I didn't know, but Brazil is one of the top pulp exporters to the US. So I'm looking forward to hear your thoughts, Fabio. We also have Kellie Meiman, please. Kellie, Senior Counselor at McClarty Associates, a former US diplomat and trade official. Kellie followed Brazil in the Southern Cone at the office of the US Trade Representative and later helped grow McClarty Associates into a global firm. She's also a member of the Dialogue Board of Directors. Sean F. Sullivan, please, Sean, join us, Managing Director for Global Government Affairs at Citi, a former US diplomat and Pentagon official with experience from Angola to Kosovo. He now leads Citi's government relations across Latin America and the Caribbean. Thank you so much. I'll join you over there to moderate. Hello, can you hear me well? Thank you, the three of you, for being here today with me. I will start with you, Kellie. You observed Brazil-US trade relations trajectory over the years. How would you describe the evolution of this partnership? And we know the current political climate poses its challenge. From your perspective, why it's so important to sustain dialogue and cooperation now?
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation to be here today, and congratulations on this special day. Yeah, I mean, maybe just a quick walk down memory lane. I mean, back when I first went to Brazil as a baby diplomat in 1995, we had a baby trade agreement in North America called NAFTA. We had a baby trade agreement in South America called Mercosur. And, we were really kind of teeing up an initiative here in Washington called the Free Trade Area of the Americas, which I wasted many hours and maybe years of my life working on, including by trying to convince the Brazilians that this was a great idea, right? So, and the Brazilians really took a position, which is a huge reason why the FTA didn't happen, that they wanted to keep their lines in a lot of different waters, right? Lots of different agreements, a much more, diversified approach. I think that a lot of the diplomats at Itamaraty that I used to try to convince, no, but this is a great idea, throw in your lot with the US. I think a number of them are probably having some I told you so moments right now, in that the approach that Brazil did take, which was, again, to talk to a number of different trading partners and to really bet on the multilateral system. And we saw that, the apex of that with Roberto Acevedo, leading the WTO. That approach, was what Brazil decided served its interests well including because of their agricultural priorities and the fact that those really needed to be addressed in the multilateral realm. So I paint that picture just to say that this moment is difficult, but it's not like Brazil-US bilateral relationship in the trade realm has been a cakewalk, ever. It's always been challenging. We compete in a lot of areas. We're not fully aligned in the way that we approach regulatory issues. Back in the day, Brazil has always had a much more assertive approach when it comes to industrial policy. We're starting to do more industrial policy here in the United States now, but reliance on local content requirements was always an irritant. We had intellectual property, it's a laundry list, right? So I think that it's important to, just kind of take a breath and say, yes, this moment is difficult. Yes, there are a lot of issues on the table in the ongoing 301 investigation that's taking place with respect to Brazil. However, the engagement that I think, if G to G, if government to government is challenging, I think the engagement that groups like the Dialogue, that the companies that are invested in Brazil and Brazilian companies, it's super important, Fabio, that you're here to tell your story. The Brazilian companies that are invested in the US, which I think is an undertold story in the United States, in Washington, but also at state and local levels, that is really critical because at this point, the Fabios and the Priscillas and, you all are ambassadors. Tony was a real ambassador, but you all at this stage, you really are the ambassadors to this bilateral relationship and highlighting the importance of it. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much. Fabio, over to you. I'd love to hear the concrete investment story. Suzano recently expanded its operations in the United States, right? Including major investments in the South Central region. Could you tell us what drove that decision? What's the impact it's having locally? And how does, I think this represents an example of resilience and long-term nature of the relationship. Thank you.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Bom dia. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Bruna, for the invitation. And so just 1 minute brief here, speaking a little bit about Suzano. I don't know how many of you know us. It's a company that is not well known outside our industry. Probably you don't know us, but you know our products. You probably use our products on a daily basis. I hope so. We are probably in 70%, 80% of all toilet paper and tissue paper that is being sold in the United States today. It's made mainly with our wood pulp that we produce in Brazil. We provide the smoothness of the paper, so I hope you appreciate that. Without our products, life would be a little bit rough, on the rough side. So we have a very important aspect about what we bring to the American people. And we also produce paper here in U.S. in our mill in Arkansas. We're producing box board, mainly for juices and milks, cartons. That if you go to a grocery store, most likely one of these orange juices and milk cartons are made in Arkansas. So Suzano is 101 years old. We celebrated that last year. It's a company that has grown a lot. I have been with the company for almost 20 years. Now in different areas of the company. I'm very proud of what we have accomplished. We are the largest wood pulp producer in the world. We had 14 mills operating in Brazil. So it's a company that sells to 100 different countries in the world. And we sell to every single region of the world, but we had all our operations in Brazil. So we start discussing after COVID, Priscilla is in our board as well, that we had, looking at our supply chains and the way that the world was evolving, it was really important for the company to step up, and make an investment in operations outside Brazil. And when we started looking where to invest, we had many options. Should we invest in Asia? Should we invest in Europe? Should we invest in North America? It was very clear for us that we need to be in the US. US is not by far the largest market that we operate, but it's the market that we see that offers the most opportunities for us, to grow. So you have all the institutions here. You have, laws that, it's easy to do business. So we decided to make our first international investment after 100 years in the state of Arkansas. So it's a big, change and engagement from the company in order to do it. Last year, we bought a company, very old mill. This is very different from what we do in Brazil. We usually build mills, and we operate mills with very high top technology and very productive mills. This is a mill that was built in the 50s, badly kept. Not, the maintenance was not made properly. So we thought that would be an opportunity for us to start small and grow from there. And since October, I moved with my family to Arkansas. It's a big move, moving from, we were based in Vienna, my family and myself, in Austria, then moved to São Paulo, then here. So, but we enjoying it, every single aspect of that. And we came here. This is a mill that was bleeding money. Lots of issues in terms of safety, community engagement. We are the largest employer in one of the poorest regions of the state of Arkansas, which is Pine Bluff, the south part of the state. So, which is, a state is one of the poorest in the United States, and then one of the poorest areas in the whole state. It's us. We're the largest employer there. So we have this social responsibility in work with the community there in order to engage, and have the workforce that we need. We made the decision to come here with a very few Brazilians. So it was myself and 3 people, more than we brought from Brazil. And then we decided, look, we need to engage these people. And that's what we have been doing so far. It has been lots of work, hard work. But so far, I think we have accomplished a lot. We're going to be results positive this year. After 12 months, so we have turned the business around, and we improved safety by a lot. So we're very proud of what we have accomplished in a very short period of time. But mainly, I'm very proud of what the long-term thinking of Suzano in terms of the U.S. market. So we're preparing to invest in this mill. We have already invested 170 million since we arrived, mainly to bring to renew things and to make things work that they're not working properly. And now we're preparing the second wave of investment that will allow us to grow and to show new investment here in the U.S. So the board is behind us. We have lots of support from our board, and we see a very bright future ahead for Suzano in the U.S. Suzano is the second largest Brazilian export to the U.S. So you probably know that the first one is Embraer, that produced the regional jets. The second one were us. And I have been here in Washington, D.C. more than what I like to be in the last few months. But I would like to say that, we have an open dialogue with, the American government. Even though the dialogues between the governments, we could enhance that. The dialogues between the companies and the governments are working properly. So we have some progress regarding the tariffs. So we were happy that the ways that things are evolving. But very happy that we have the dialogue here so that we can enhance even further the dialogue between the two countries. So.
Thank you so much, Fabio. As Kellie said, I think you are all ambassadors now. So in the think tank world, you often are in a room full of ambassadors now more than ever, right? Everyone is. But I want to turn over to you, Sean. You were representing here the finance sector, right? Looking at the current state of affairs of the bilateral relations, how is the sector looking at that? And what are the main concerns?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm definitely not going to be as entertaining as Fabio, but I will do my best. So let me just start. So, City, we've been in Brazil for over 100 years. There are a lot of countries in Latin America we've been there over 100 years. We operate in 95 countries around the world. We have business in 165, and we work with and under many different types of business climates. And I agree with Kellie that even though the current bilateral relationship is a challenge, I think we all do need to take a deep breath. I think that the Brazil and the United States last year celebrated 200 years of diplomatic relations. The cultural, historical, economic, commercial ties that bind our countries are resilient. And Brazil is a massive market. For a city, it's an extremely important market, as it is for many American financial institutions. It's a $2.3 trillion economy with over 200 million people. It's the 10th largest economy in the world. And it's a place that American companies are going to continue to want to do business, no matter what. I think the biggest challenge right now for the private sector, and it's not specific just to Brazil, it's global. We're living through this global age of disruption and uncertainty. And in that regard, Brazil is not unique. It's just a phenomenon that we're going through and that we'll have to work through. But I think the biggest challenge right now for the private sector, for the financial sector, is uncertainty. As my lead economist for Latin America always says, uncertainty is worse than a bad policy decision because you just don't know where the guideposts are. But I think we're going to get there soon. And I think eventually it is going to be up to the governments to figure out what kind of relationship they want in the future. But at the end of the day, the commercial ties between the U.S. and Brazil will continue no matter what. I often remind people that even though China is Brazil's largest trading partner, the U.S. is the largest foreign direct investor in Brazil. Brazil has deep capital markets. It's got a very independent private sector. And it's a country that has the things that the United States and the world needs. For me, the biggest challenge right now, or the biggest concern I have is one, uncertainty, but two, the potential for missed opportunities. But that said, at the end of the day, we have to, again, take a deep breath and realize that, this is a transitory period. We will get certainty sooner or later in the relationship. And once we get that, the private sector will adapt and we'll be able to, go back and continue to do business like we've been doing.
Excellent. I will go back to you, Fabio, and one thing you touched on, and I would love to hear your thoughts. You mentioned about the work that you came in with 3 Brazilians, right? And engaged locally. And so I also want to hear, how do you engage the local community in the region? What are the experiences you are all having there in terms of that?
Sure. So we decided to participate of the city of Pine Bluff. So we're engaging with the mayor, the mayor there, the Chamber of Commerce. We also engage in programs regarding education. Education is important for us, technical education, and also college education, because that's where our labor force will come from. So we are going to schools and we are discussing what type of engagement can we have towards to bring to prepare this new the new people that will come and work for us, because we're gonna need, if we want to grow, we're gonna need more labor. This is one of the largest concerns that we have there. We're doing some work on substance abuse as well. This is something that we don't deal with in Brazil, but here, we are learning how to do that. We have a very large, unfortunately, proportion of substance abuse in the community and also within our employees. So if we want to have a safe work environment, we need to prepare to work with that, and how we improve. And working with the state, we called Walmart and the Walton Foundation to learn what they're doing. And I talked to them myself in the state there, so that we can learn and see if there's anything that we can do together. We engaged in programs for women leadership development. There we have lots of women at the mill. So this is an important thing for us. And we're doing stuff as well that it doesn't seem important, but it's really important. So we are sponsoring the local baseball team, and this it seems small, but you know, it really brings a sense of community engagement for the people at the mill, you know, because they feel proud. You know, there's a sense of pride in what to belong of something that they have lost. You know, the last owner of the mill, and we're doing, just to give you guys an idea of what else we're doing. We're preparing for. We're working on enhance safety at the state and other companies there. So we're bringing we have very good safe standards in Brazil. So we're helping to benchmark with other companies in the state to enhance, you know, the safety KPIs of other companies that operate in the state of Arkansas as well. So these are a few things that we're doing. It's just 1 year, so we hope that we can do more than that. Community engagement is something that we do a lot in Brazil. Most of our mills in Brazil are located in poor areas. So we see that as a social license to operate. And we need to do the same here, but we need to find the right opportunities that you know, it's important for the mill in Arkansas. Yes.
It's so nice because sometimes I get the feeling that as Brasilia was far from Brazil, sometimes here in Washington we are far from the United States. In seeing the reality of those of the relationship that unfolds on the ground at the local level, so it's fascinating that you share that. Sean, you touched on something on the financing opportunities. I want to go back to that. I know it's hard sometimes to have a positive spin here, but I really want to hear, where do you see the biggest financing gaps and therefore opportunities for the Brazil-US relation? What are the sectors?
I mean, like, the great thing about Brazil is that all the sectors of the economy that exist there exist here, right? I mean, the largest sectors: oil and gas, technology, the digital economy, digital infrastructure, and the area that I've started to focus on a lot lately, critical minerals and rare earths. I think those are all tremendous opportunities for American companies, financial institutions that want to get involved there. I think starting this year, later next year, we'll have the reauthorization of the DFC, the Development Finance Corporation, I think, which will be key for American, you know, companies and financial institutions that want to do more financing in Brazil. But like I said, the great thing about Brazil, as compared to a lot of countries that we operate in, it has a massive, deep capital market. Which means it's able to finance a lot of its own debt in local currency, which is key. And I think for American companies, you know, 65% of Fortune 500 companies operate in Brazil. Something like, I think it's like 4,600 American companies have a presence in Brazil. So I think the opportunities are there. They're in, you know, almost every potential sector. But again, I think it's also an opportunity, as I think Kellie was hinting at, where Brazil could also do more to make the business climate more attractive. And there are things that Brazil can do and should do. You know, when you compare Brazil to the Mexican market, you know, Mexico's economy depends on about 40% of exports. Brazil's only 15%. So it's a relatively closed market. So there's a lot more that Brazil could do to be more business friendly, to attract even more foreign investment, although it is one of the leaders in emerging markets in attracting FDI. But there's a lot more that the government can do to simplify things. And I think that for American companies that understand the Brazilian market, the potential is going to be there for the long term. And it's going to be in all the key sectors. It's going to be in agriculture. It's going to be in biodiesel. It's going to be in, you know, companies like Embraer, technology, whatnot.
If I can just add to something that Sean said, I think that, you know, the chaos of the current moment, looking beyond Brazil, it has created a bit of opportunity, because, you know, doing some of the things that you highlighted, Sean, it's hard, right? There's a reason the Brazilian government hasn't taken those steps, right? So it's been interesting around the globe to see how certain countries have taken advantage. They never waste a crisis, have taken advantage of this moment to say, all right, maybe we should lean in and do some of those hard things. So I think it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think we've all been observing the Brazilian, reaction to U.S. policy steps. And it'll be interesting to see how that component plays in.
It's nice that what you said, because it's from your perspective, we can somehow have this moment where the private sector engage with the U.S. private sector and also yield dividends that we will later on perhaps rebuild the relationship at the political level. So I think that's one of the messages that I got from you. Shake your heads if that's right. One of the things that I heard, I think here, let's hope for that. But I think I talked in my remarks about resilience, about how I think that this moment is also a moment to see how resilient our private sector has been, our institutions, like ourselves as a think tank focusing on Brazil. But what does this look like in practice right now? Like when it comes to Brazil-US relations? What are the opportunities to be resilient in sustaining this relationship at this moment, not only to build opportunities for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I highlighted a bit of it in my opening remarks, but I do think that, there is just so much going on between our private sectors. I thought it was interesting in the AmCham comments with the 301 investigation that they highlighted that about a third of our trade is intra-company transfer. Probably a lot of those Suzano and Embraer and everybody else. But that really highlights the integrated nature of what our companies are doing. Our economies might not be as integrated as the U.S. and Mexico, but what our companies are doing is very integrated. So I think continuing to get that right, and we've seen that with some of the exemptions that have taken place, where there's a real recognition of do we want to be taxing, because a tariff is a tax, inputs for U.S. production? And, I believe personally that the answer to that is no. I mean, even in an environment where we do have a shift in the United States around the way that we are looking at market opening and tariffs, I tend to think of it as inputs, not imports, right? So thinking of what those inputs are and how can we be sure that, and again, we're just talking about Brazil here, but this is a broader question. How can we be sure that we are not prejudicing U.S. production, which in this political environment in the U.S., that's, we are in an America first world right now. So that is the way that you have to frame the arguments. I do think that in the Brazilian case, there is a way to frame those arguments. I mean, beyond that, Bruna, I would say, I mean, Brazil is a critical bridge to the global South. And I think that while this moment is difficult, and Tony, you highlighted, China in your opening remarks, I think that, getting, this relationship right at the right moment, getting it kind of, back on the rails, so to speak, at the right moment, will be important for that reason, beyond just kind of the practical, integrated nature of our trade flows that I highlighted at the top.
Look, I would just say, I think once we get past this current moment, I think there will be a big opportunity for both governments, both countries to figure out what we want, the medium and long-term future to look like, right? I mean, we're, with the global, supply chain shifting so rapidly and right before our eyes, I often talk about the regionalization of globalization. And as I said earlier, Brazil has many of the things that the United States needs. And we do need to do, I think, a lot more work, and I think we will get there in terms of inserting Brazil more into our supply chain. And I think that will happen, even if it's just something that American companies working with Brazilian companies do on our own. I think that's going to happen. But again, like I said, I think the relationship is dynamic, it's resilient, and Brazil is just too big of a market for the United States to ignore. So I think I'm still very positive on the future. I mean, I said this a couple of weeks ago. Before the tariffs and sanctions were announced, we were forecasting 2.2% growth for Brazil this year. we're still forecasting 2.2% growth for Brazil. Now, that's not great. Brazil should be growing a lot more, but comparatively speaking, it's not bad. But again, I think there's a lot more that Brazil can do if it seizes the opportunity to grow its economy and to meet the needs of its people while integrating, into the Western Hemisphere supply chain better.
It's been super interesting that the hit to Brazilian exports has not been in August as severe as most folks predicted. So it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves.
Actually, exports expanded, right, in the numbers last month. Fabio.
Just complementing here, we must have a long-term view. Our view, at least from the private sector, needs to be longer than the next election cycles. These are two very large markets. I do see us as leaders in the private sector as a key roles in order to change this situation. So the private sector is going to be the one that's going to make this thing a piece of the past, I would say so. And improve the relationship between the two countries, as was said here before. 200 years of relations. So we need to, we in the private sector, we need to approach both sides and extract value for both countries in terms of economic and social development. So
that's excellent. One thing you mentioned, Kelly, and I think it's an interesting take also is the Brazil is a bridge to the global South. I remember at the Wilson Center with the China Kissinger Center, we often had conversations about how can we get creative about how to approach Brazil-U.S. relations beyond U.S.-China competition. And remember that 78% of the world lives outside China and the United States. So how can Brazil be a bridge with that almost 80% of the world population? And that's a good angle, I think, strategic to look at. Well, today here we looked at interdependence, trade, investment. I want to give an opportunity for some of our members also to ask questions, people here on the audience too. So if you can raise your hand, I can turn you over the microphone. João, please. Yes. We have people watching online.
No, thank you. Thank you for the remarks. Well, there's a glimpse of hope, I think, when I hear, the story of Suzano and the comments Sean and Kellie made. And Kellie, you reminded me when you were talking about, FTAA and Mercosur and NAFTA. I went back in academia, I've wrote about a lot, spent a lot of ink writing about those. And I wonder, is there a moment in time where you see kind of the opportunity to revive some trade talks at some point, not only bilateral, because you mentioned the importance of company-to-company relationship, which is obvious, and I think Sean and Fabio and myself will represent that. But I think, is there a moment to talk about at some point, what's the role of Mercosur, if any? I know there's talk about European Union and others, so just kind of set the Brazil-U.S. relationship in a broader trade context in the region. So love your remarks on that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, we do not have an appetite for trade agreements in Washington right now of any sort. However, I think that the broad-based tariff application that is being implemented by the Trump administration, to be honest, it's kind of what a lot of the opponents of FTAs, free trade agreements, kind of dreamt about for a long time, right? And so we're going through an experiment right now of, you thought that's what you wanted, but this is the impact on the economy. And we have not yet felt that impact on the economy because in great measure, companies have been swallowing the tariffs. There was a lot of stockpiling that was going on early on. So I think that, most economists are predicting that, Q4 or Q1 next year, we are going to see some of these chickens coming home to roost. And I think, returning to what I was saying about never waste a crisis, I do think that it should, if we play our cards right, if policymakers play their cards right, it should incent a conversation about, and again, I'll just return to my inputs versus imports discussion, because a lot of what we're doing right now, doesn't work if your goal is to help US manufacturing, services, and technology companies. And so, and in that area, a lot of the sectors that Sean highlighted, critical minerals is an obvious one, are important. So I view the opportunity maybe going forward as, you know, when we can get back to a bit more of regular order, is thinking about what does the US need? Because I think, you know, the America First mindset is it will fade, I think, in whatever the next administration is, because I think President Trump can carry that forward in a very unique way, but it ain't going away. So I think that the way that we couch our objectives in the bilateral relationship, excuse me, from a trade perspective, we just have to be really pragmatic about it. And being pragmatic, I do think there's opportunity, Shuang.
Someone want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I won't go too deep into this point, other than to say, you know, the obvious, which is we're also entering a political year in Brazil and a political year here in the United States. And obviously politics, you know, leads to a lot of uncertainty and unpredictability. So I think, you know, once we move past that, again, I think we'll be, you know, in a much better place. But again, you know, I think it's important that we kind of, you know, again, like I said earlier, take a breath and just understand that this moment will pass. And once we do have greater clarity and certainty on tariffs and potential sanctions and whatnot, you know, the relationship will move forward. It'll be different, but it will move forward. And again, I think the role of the private sector is going to be absolutely key. And what I always tell city clients when I'm in the region is that local private sectors need to get more involved. Many of them don't like to get involved in politics, just for all the obvious reasons. But it's critically important that the private sector has a seat at the table and a role to play.
Well, before we wrap up, I think there are many important messages from the panel. I hope I reconvene you in January 2027 after the Brazilian election, and then we go through where we are again. But till then, I think there's a lot ahead of us, obviously, and especially a lot of work for us here at the Brazil program. So I will use the last 2 minutes just to tell you a little bit more about what we have ahead of us. Moving forward, as you know, so the Brazil program has been relaunched here. We bring through events, reports, private gatherings, expertise. And I think our secret sauce here at the Dialogue is three things. One is our presence in Washington as the only policy institution focused on Brazil. Two is our network. It's not only me, it's not only Julia. We have a network of fellows that are brilliant. Some of them are here. A number of people who are engaged as members of the Dialogue, institutions, universities, our board members, our advisory council, the private sector. So this is, we act in network. And third, thought leadership. We always bring content to the conversation and try to advance that on with this focus. So we organized our work in pillars. One of them is obviously Brazil-US relations, and this is the first of this new format of Brazil-US dialogue, and hopefully this year and next we will have more focuses not only in democratic institutions and the political aspect of the relationship, but also the sectoral aspect. So health is an important sector for us moving forward, biotech, including others like technology and so on and so forth. Second is what we call abundant and sustainable future. And the reason some people ask, why abundant? Because we look at two important sectors that Latin America has advantage, which is sustainable agriculture and energy. In that pillar, we have a venue at COP30. If any of you here are going to be there, going to be in Belém, we have a house there. It's called Casa Diálogo. We will be hosting events. We'll be launching papers. We have a great partnership with amazing supporters. One is Arcos Dourados, Marfreg, WWF, and Embrapa. It's going to be great. I hope to see you all in Belém for that. Our third pillar is emerging technologies. We obviously look from the perspective of how Brazil is regulating emerging technologies like AI, but also how Brazil is looking at cybersecurity and how those technologies are being applied in sectors like health, education, in advancing growth and competitivity in the country. And finally, but obviously really important, that permeates all of our work, is democratic governance. We know that democracy is a very delicate fabric. We've learned that hard ways, but we always focus on that in our work. So please follow us, engage with the Brazil program. I want to thank everyone who's watching online, this full room of people, and onward, right? Thank you all so much. Thank you, the panel.